Are you a small business owner struggling to nail down your brand voice? Have you hired copywriters only to discover they couldn't capture your messaging? If that sounds like you, then you need to download my free resource, Discover Your Brand Voice in 3 Easy Steps. Once you complete these simple steps, you will have a solid foundation for producing your business copy, whether you decide to write your own content or outsource it to a professional, like, say, me. As an added bonus, you'll be automatically subscribed to my email list, where you can learn more about my writing services and receive weekly updates about my podcast, Emotional Abuse is Real. Head over to the link in the show notes to grab Discover Your Brand Voice in 3 Easy Steps today. Trigger warning, this podcast episode features discussions of multi-level marketing companies and other toxic health and wellness groups. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Emotional Abuse is Real. I'm your host, Sarene Leeds. I'm a professional writer and storyteller, and I'm so glad you're here. Today's episode kicks off my second ever dedicated series, and this time I'm focusing on emotional abuse and trauma stemming from a specific kind of toxic community. For the next several episodes, I'll be talking about health and wellness groups with a focus on multi-level marketing companies, also known as MLMs. I have some great guests lined up, and I'm excited to take this journey with you all. As always, before we get into the episode, I have a few quick announcements. Please make sure you're following me on Instagram at Sarene Leeds Writes. That's SareneLeedsWrites. And that you're subscribed to this podcast on either Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube. Also, don't forget to support Emotional Abuse is Real by leaving a 5-star rating and writing a review over on Apple Podcasts. If you're interested in sharing your emotional abuse experience on this podcast, whether it's for my current series on MLMs or you'd like to talk about trauma from a personal relationship, please either DM me on Instagram, email me at hello@sereneleadswrites.com, or fill out my quick and simple application form. I've left links to my Instagram, email, the show's application form, and my free download, Discover Your Brand Voice in 3 Easy Steps, in the show notes. For today's episode, I wanted to give a little backstory as to why I'm so interested in MLMs and similarly toxic health and wellness groups. The first question many of you may be asking is, well, Sarene, what exactly is an MLM? So here's that brief history lesson. Multi-level marketing companies, or MLMs, grew out of door-to-door sales businesses that were popular in the first half of the 20th century. Via this method, customers would purchase products directly from a traveling company representative instead of going to a store. Some of my older listeners may remember this style of direct sales in the form of, say, the Avon or Mary Kay makeup lady. Eventually, this direct sales method evolved into companies now known as MLMs, with these businesses experiencing skyrocketing growth since the 1980s. In recent decades, MLMs have become even more appealing to women, particularly stay-at-home suburban mothers. Through social media platforms like Instagram and the ubiquitous momfluencers, these companies offer an entrepreneurial opportunity while allowing these women to, well, maintain their domestic duties. Although women represent less than 50% of the United States workforce, 74% of MLM distributors are, in fact, female. What is baffling about MLMs, however, is even though they are a $36 billion industry, 99% of MLM distributors either lose money or only break even. That means only 1% of MLM participants actually succeed in making money. The onset of the COVID-19 pandemic only exacerbated this problem, with American women leaving the workforce in droves. Yet they were still being lured into these so-called entrepreneurial opportunities that offered very little return on investment. Now, why am I so interested in MLMs? Well, because I was a potential recruit on a number of occasions. About 4 years ago, in an attempt to boost my Instagram following, I joined something called a follow loop. Basically, it was like a chain letter for social media. Long story short, it was a huge mistake because I couldn't relate to most of the people I wound up following, and in turn, who followed me. Mainly because a lot of them were members of MLMs and they were using their newfound followers to recruit members. Suddenly, I was being pitched essential oils from Young Living and hair care products from Monat everywhere I looked. By the time the third or fourth rep pitched me, I knew how to read the signs of MLM recruitment. These distributors would DM me in response to a personal Instagram post, shower me with compliments, and then pitch me a fabulous new business opportunity. I turned down the offers, but that wasn't because I was an expert on MLMs. I just couldn't afford the product buy-in of several hundred, possibly thousands of dollars. Once I researched these companies, I discovered that I likely would have put myself into debt had I joined any of these so-called business opportunities. But what I couldn't understand is why so many people, women especially, continue to invest their time, energy, and finances into these companies when there is no shortage of proof that the majority of these women will not experience financial profit as MLM distributors. The main reason why most of these distributors don't make money is because many MLMs are indeed pyramid schemes. Even though these companies officially sell their products or services through person-to-person sales, the sordid truth is that the distributors only make money by recruiting new distributors, not by selling products. The problem with that business model is eventually you're going to run out of people in your network and the world to recruit. Initially, I tried to channel my MLM fascination into a long-form article about Young Living essential oils, but it didn't work out for several reasons. Not only did my editor not understand the concept of MLMs, but he insisted I get Young Living's participation as well. When Young Living unsurprisingly turned us down, the article was a bust. Then, when I was in graduate school, I conducted a semester-long project on MLMs for my social science research class. I was thrilled to discover that plenty of scholarly research does exist on MLMs, with multiple studies focusing on how involvement in these direct sales companies can be financially and emotionally detrimental to women. One study examined a concept called predatory optimism. Through this method, potential recruits are showered with resources like seminars and mentoring to ostensibly help them on their road to success. But the MLM structure is ultimately designed to fail, because if commissions are based on recruitment as opposed to sales, it is not possible for all new distributors to recruit enough participants to warrant instant wealth. Therefore, when MLM distributors inevitably fail in their goals, they're unfairly shunned for not working hard enough. Another study explored why the law seemingly protects these MLMs while their female recruits suffer financial ruin and destroyed relationships. Unfortunately, that's where my research stopped. My assignment was to create a research prospectus, but not to actually carry it out. My interest in the subject never waned, however, and there's a ton out there at the ready. For the record, all the information I've provided so far in this episode came from my 2022 research prospectus. If you want to learn more about why MLMs have such a problematic business model, I highly recommend you check out a podcast called The Dream and the 2021 Prime Video docuseries Lula Rich, which covers the rise and fall of leggings empire and MLM LuLaRoe. Also, Last Week Tonight with John Oliver did an excellent segment back in 2016 about MLMs, focusing on the very pyramid-y dietary supplement company Herbalife. The entire segment is available for free on YouTube. And speaking of YouTube, there is no shortage of anti-MLM YouTubers out there, helping to spread the word about MLMs and their predatory business model. It is very, very easy to fall down that rabbit hole. And I encourage it if you're interested. Another resource recommendation, since we're going to be talking about health and wellness groups, is the 2020 Netflix docuseries Unwell, which covers essential oil MLMs like Young Living and doTERRA and other toxic areas of the health and wellness industry. I've left links to The Dream and the Last Week Tonight segment in the show notes. My final resource recommendation on this topic is Emily Lynn Paulson's book, Hey Hun, Sales, Sisterhood, Supremacy, and the Other Lies Behind Multi-Level Marketing. Emily is a former MLMer and a rarity in the industry. She was one of the 1% who actually achieved the success her MLM promised her. But that success came at a horrible cost. In full transparency, I've only just started reading Emily's book, but it's been on my list for several months. I'm so excited to dive into this firsthand account of the good, the bad, and the ugly of MLMs. I've also left a link to more info about Hey Hun in the show notes, so you can either purchase the book or do like I did and head over to your local library to grab a copy to read. Of course, everybody's story is different. But given the relentless pressure on people recruited into these communities, whether it's an MLM or another kind of health and wellness group, it's inevitable that some of these people will experience some form of emotional abuse or trauma. That's where this podcast comes in. Maybe I'll never understand why these toxic groups still lure people in despite the hard evidence of potential financial ruin. But what I can do is share the stories of their victims and help people identify the red flags in these communities. I believe that the more we can identify these red flags, the less likely people will be duped by these MLMs' false promises of financial freedom. It may be a hackneyed expression, but an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Anyway, I hope I've piqued your interest on this topic. Next week's episode features my interview with a mental health professional who had her own traumatic experience in a group she refers to as a, quote, yoga cult. Make sure you're subscribed to Emotional Abuse is Real wherever you get your podcasts, because trust me, you don't want to miss her story. Thank you for listening to this episode of Emotional Abuse is Real. If you would like to be a guest on the podcast, please don't hesitate to reach out via email at hello@SareneLeedsWrites.com, through Instagram at SareneLeedsWrites, or fill out my guest application form. Please note that this podcast should not be used as a substitute for professional mental health services. If you are a victim of emotional abuse and need help, please call or text the Suicide and Crisis Hotline at 988, or call the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-7233. You can also text START, S-T-A-R-T, to 88788. Once again, Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review the podcast on Apple Podcasts. Follow me on Instagram and go grab my free download, Discover Your Brand Voice in 3 Easy Steps. Thanks so much for listening, and I'll see you next time.